Welcome you to today's lesson. In this class, you will learn about the Trans-Saharan trade. And under this topic, we'll discuss the origin and the nature of the Trans-Saharan trade. We'll talk about the features of the trade. And lastly, we'll talk about the commodities that were traded during the Trans-Saharan trade. Now, the Trans-Saharan trade refers to the trade between the West Africa kingdoms south of the Sahara and the Arabs and the Berber kingdoms of Africa's Mediterranean coast. In the first place, each of the regions that were involved in the trade produced certain commodities that could be sold or were urgently required in other regions. Now, noteworthy at this point is that the trade involved mainly the West African kingdoms and the North African kingdom. So the trade was a rationale, that's a web of commercial rationale between West Africa and North Africa. All right, these two regions had certain commodities that were needed by each of them. All right, so in West Africa, we had lots of gold and little or no salt, while in North Africa, they had abundance of salt and little or no gold. So there needed to be a web of commercial interaction for the trade to thrive. Although it is not certain at the time the trade actually started, but historians have it that the trade began around the 3rd or the 4th century and it got to its peak at about the 14th and the 16th century. But it became widely and visibly known at around the 8th century AD. Now, it is worthy to note that the Trans-Saharan trade began with a long history of encounters for over 1,000 years. Now, the trade emerged due to the fact that North Africa was rich in salt, which West Africa lacked, while West Africa was rich in gold. Now, rich traders from North Africa started the trade. That is, the trade was financed by rich Arabs and Berbers, that's people from North Africa. These people provided the trade goods, they provided camels, they provided horses to the middlemen who coordinated the trade. This Trans-Saharan trade was done in exchange or in a barter system where one good is traded for another. Now, some of the caravan traders used agents who sold goods on proxy. Now, the caravans often departed from the North Africa during the raining season, where sandstorm would have subsided for smooth travel. The traders made these stops at the oases to refresh themselves and also allow their camels to drink enough water for the journey. And the word caravan here means a passage or a carriage of both the traders and their goods, right, through the Sahara Desert. Now, it is important that we state here that those people that were involved in the trade, like I've mentioned earlier, I've mentioned the Berbers and Arabs who came from North Africa. Then the Tuaregs, they acted as guards along the trade routes. And then we have those people from West Africa kingdoms who were majorly involved in the Trans-Saharan trade. Right now, let's talk about the features of the Trans-Saharan trade. The trade became firmly established at around the 8th century AD. I've mentioned that earlier. Now, camels were used as major means of transportation across the Sahara Desert. They were used for long journeys because of their natural features, the ability to carry bulky goods, as well as infrequent need of water. Worthy of note at this point is that the camels were also referred to as the beasts of burden or the endurance animal. Another feature of the Trans-Saharan trade is that the Berber traders, the Arabs, and other merchants, as well as geographers, missionaries, and explorers, they traveled in caravans to relate with their West African partners. Number 4, the trade reached its peak at around the 14th and the 16th century. Number 5, major trade routes were developed, trade centers were established, and frequent movements of caravans explored the Saharan region. Number 6, many centers of trade were established and kingdoms flourished as a result of the wealth that occurred from the trade. Alright, next up, let's talk about the commodities that were traded during the Trans Saharan trade. The first we'll talk about here is gold, and gold was used in making jewelry due to its attractiveness. Another one is salt. These were the two main commodities that prompted the emergence of the Trans-Saharan trade, gold and salt. Now, salt was a very scarce commodity and it is very difficult to obtain in many parts of the world. This was a major factor that made it one of the most traded goods during the Trans-Saharan trade. Number 3, we have horses. Horses were used as means of transportation. We also have camels, which was also used as a means of transportation. Number 5, we have slaves. People were usually kidnapped or captured as prisoners of war, and they were sold by West Africans to traders who came from North Africa. Another commodity that were traded during the Trans-Saharan trade was spices. Spices such as garlic, black pepper, cinnamon, mustard seeds. They include ancient herbal medicine, and they had different health benefits. This increased the demand during the Trans-Saharan trade. Other commodities include textiles, tobacco, kola nuts, dates, copper, industrial goods, ostrich feathers, sorghum, shea butter. And with this, we've come to the end of our class for today. Until we meet again in the next class, goodbye and stay safe.